So this is part 2 of the guitar setup series. I'm going to look at intonation. I was hoping to get this video out a bit sooner than what I've actually done, but whilst I was planning it I realised there's a couple of other things that I need to really talk about in relation to this video. Didn't want this to be super long and dragging on, so I've covered those in separate videos which I'm going to link to in the description, and I'll tell you when that's when I'm doing that, when that's appropriate. So with the intonation, it's a very, very simple adjustment to make. All we're doing is adjusting the length of the string. Now, when we talk about intonation, it's not the same thing as tuning. When we're talking about tuning, what we're basically talking about is making sure that our strings are in tune. Each of our strings, whether it's 4 strings in this case on a bass, 6 strings on one of my electric guitars, are in tune and they're going to sound nice when we play them. So that's tuning. When we're talking about intonation, it's not quite as simple as that. What we mean is we're trying to make sure that the tuning is accurate throughout the entire length of the neck on the guitar. When you do your normal tuning, or certainly when I start showing students and beginners how to do tuning, we look at using a tuning device. It might be an app on a phone, it might be little clip-on gadget like that. These are really good. Or it might be a level up. It might be an actual tuner pedal that you can buy to help you keep your instrument in tune. But whichever way you do it, what we normally do is start with playing an open string and checking that against our tuner, play the next string, check that against our tuner. Tuner will normally tell us whether it's in tune or not. So that's basic tuning. With intonation, it's not just about the open string, it's about making sure that when we play the string higher up the neck, that it remains in tune then. So what are we actually looking for and how we're going to do it? But before I show you how to do it, I'll just explain what you're going to need in order to be able to do this, and I'm going to reference those videos that I talked about as well. So when I talk about the string being in tune further up the neck, one thing that's really important to understand is the 12th fret on the instrument, basically. It's called the octave fret. I've done another video, the link's going to be in the description, that's why I've done it, and I'm going to be using this fret to perform this intonation setup. So I'm going to be playing notes on the 12th fret. You don't need to know why it's important if you don't want to be bothered watching the video, but it is important, and if you do want to know why, then check out my other video. But if you don't want to do that, just take it from me, the 12th fret is an important fret because that's halfway across the length of your string, and that's the measurement that we're going to use. So that's going to be the gist of the intonation, is measuring the tuning at the 12th fret rather than on the open string. I'm on a bass now, it's exactly the same on any other guitar. It works the same because a string is a string. So before we start doing this, what do we need in order to be able to perform this adjustment? First thing, obviously, we need to be able to have the tools for the job. So we're going to be changing the string length in this case, and I'll do a close-up so that you can see on the back of the bridge. In this case, there's a little screw that I can adjust, turn in or out. There's one for each string, and I'm going to use that to adjust the string length. Exactly the same with the guitars. I think it might be actually an Allen key on the guitars, or on one of them rather than a screw, but it's exactly the same principle. We're going to use an Allen key wrench or a screwdriver to turn that screw in or out. That's going to change the length of the string because that's how we're going to adjust our intonation. The second thing we need to know is the technique that I'm going to use to do this in this video is by using something called natural harmonics. And again, I'm going to put a link in the description. So I've done a video on how to play these. I've done it because I was planning to do this video, so I've gone down the rabbit hole and thought, right, well, rather than making this video and explaining those as well, I've done a separate video on those. What I mean is, play a note on my 12th fret, I play a harmonic on my 12th fret. You might not hear it so well because I'm not plugged in, but that's really important. I need to be able to have that technique to play those harmonic notes, natural harmonic notes, to be able to perform this this adjustment on the guitar. So if you're not comfortable doing that, check out my video on that, have a practice at that and make sure that you're okay. They're not that bad as they sound if you're new to, if you haven't played them before. They're not particularly scary. It might take you a little bit of time to get up to speed on those, but you're going to need to do that, so there's no way around it. The third thing is the tuner. Now, when I'm talking about normal tuning, I've already mentioned we can use tuning app, we can use clip-on tuner, we can use a special tuner in a box, a higher quality tuner that's going to be more accurate. When it comes to this adjustment, you want to be using the most accurate tuner, the best quality tuner that you've got available to you. So in my case, I'm going to use a dedicated tuner in a box type thing, because I know for a fact from using it that's the most accurate and most responsive tuner that I've got. That's not to say that you can't do it using these or these. I'm not saying you can't do it with those, but it makes the job a lot easier with a better quality tuner. So if you're happy using your phone app and it's working good for you and you can measure it okay, or your clip-on, if you're happy using those, that's fine. Absolutely brilliant. I use those every day just to do normal tuning and things like that. I've no problem with them. But for this, because we need a little bit of accuracy in that, I do revert back to my sort of pedal in a box. You may not have that. If that's the case, fair enough, use what you've got. Or if you know someone that's got an actual tuner pedal, or nowadays a lot of amps have got tuners built in and they're really, really accurate. So that might be another option for you as well. But the takeaway is accurate tuning is super important for that. So I need accurate tuning. I need to be able to play those harmonic notes. I need to be aware of my 12th fret, and I need to know which screw I'm going to turn. So I'm going to go into close-up now, and I'm going to show you the screws that you're going to need to turn, and then hopefully I'm going to set up again with my tuner in view and show you the procedure in terms of how I'm going to make the adjustment and how it affects my tuning. So looking at the back of the guitar, the back of the bridge on the guitar, you can see the ball ends on the ends of the strings, the coloured things there. Next to those, we've got some screws. That's what we're going to use to adjust the string length, to set the intonation on the guitar. There's one for each string, so obviously I'm looking down my thick E string there, my A string, D, G string. We'll do one at a time, so I'm going to set the intonation on this E string first. Then when I'm happy with that, I'm going to go and do it on the next string, and the next string, and the next string. With these screws, we can obviously turn them two ways. We can turn them clockwise or anti-clockwise, counterclockwise, whichever way you want to call it. If we want to lengthen the string, then we need to be turning the screw clockwise. So I'm going to turn it that way. If we want to shorten the string, then we're going to turn it anti-clockwise. So I'm going to turn it that way. That's the same principle for every design of bridge on these guitars. What I'll just do now is just show you next the other guitars, the main electric guitars, so you can see how it's such a simple process. I'm doing it on the bass, but you'll be able to see that the idea is exactly the same, regardless of which guitar that I'm doing it on. So my fixed bridge electric guitar, you can see it's exactly the same principle as what I was just showing you on the bass guitar. You've got these screws, obviously in this instance. There's 6 of them, because I've got 6 strings, one for each string. But it's really, really similar to the bass guitar in terms of how we make the adjustment. So just to show this exactly the same procedure I would do on this guitar as what I'm going to do on the bass guitar. This is my other electric guitar with the floating tremolo. It's actually exactly the same concept again. It looks a bit different because we've got more stuff. We've got these little dials on top. They're for fine tuning on the particular bridge, the floating bridge system we've got on this guitar, so forget about those. But look again, we can see these 6 bolts down the bottom. In this case, these are going to be used with an Allen key, not a screwdriver, so obviously make sure you're using the right tool for the job. But the principle is exactly the same. I'm going to adjust these in and out to lengthen the string or shorten the string as I want it to be. So you can see, no matter which guitar that I'm working on, the idea is exactly the same. I'll set up now so that you can see the tuner, as well as hopefully a little bit of what I'm playing on the guitar. It's not a perfect shot, but I'm limited with how I can set up at the minute. The tuner I'm using is in my my multi-effects unit. There's nothing taking place with the effects of the sounds in this. It's literally just been used as a tuner at the moment. I just want to show you quickly the tuner, the way that my tuner works, so that you can see what I'm doing. On the display there, it's not showing anything at the minute, I'm not playing anything. But if I go to play a note, what you'll see, hopefully, is you'll see a letter, and that'll be the closest note that it's detecting. You might also see on either side some little arrows. So just by way of example, I'll play a note there. That's my E string that I'm playing. So you can hopefully see, I'm having to look at this on the camera monitor, so I can't see what you see. You can see an E on the letter and a little arrow as well. Now, just to explain how my tuner works, so you can see what I'm doing when I do the adjustments. As you saw then, there's a little arrow on this side of the display, and if you can make it out, the arrow's pointing that way. That means that the note I've played is almost in tune, but it's ever so slightly sharp. That's why it's the arrow's pointing me that I need to flatten the note a little bit. It's flickering around a little bit because it doesn't track the bass quite as well, this tuner. It is a guitar tuner, but that's the reason for it. If the arrow had been on this side of the display, pointing that way, that means my note's a little bit flat. I need to tune up a little bit. So the arrow's pointing me in which direction I need to tune the string. And that's important because then you can understand what I'm doing in response to what you see on the display. So hopefully that's that cleared up, so you can understand my tuner. If you get an actual proper tuner pedal, they're a lot more clear and easy to see than this. This is the best tuner I've got, so this is the one that I'm using for this this video. Now, in terms of the intonation, I've talked about we're going to adjust, I showed you in the close-up, the screws on the back of the bridge. If we need to, that's what we're going to do to adjust the intonation. How do we know if it needs to be adjusted? Well, the method that I'm going to show you, we're going to play 2 different notes, and we're going to compare those 2 notes in terms of how in tune they are, and that'll tell us whether or not we need to make an adjustment to the string. So again, I'm just going to focus on my my E string to start with. Again, I'm on the bass with 4 strings. It'll be the same on your 6-string guitar or however many strings guitar, but we're just going to look at that that top E string to begin with. So the way that I'm going to do it, I'm going to play, I played an open string then, that's how we normally tune. I'm not using that for this procedure. What I'm going to do, I'm going to play a note on the 12th fret of the bass there. There's no signal going through, so you can't hear the note through the amplifier, but hopefully you can see on the tuner display whether or not that note is in tune, whether it's flat, whether it's sharp, how it is. So as I can see on my display, that looks like it's slightly sharp to me at the moment. Okay, so that's the first thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to play my 12th fret note and see whereabouts that is in tune. The note that I'm going to compare it to is going to be a harmonic, a natural harmonic on the 12th fret. I mentioned this earlier in this video. I've done another video showing you how to play these. If you're not sure, go back to that and check it out. But I'm going to play a harmonic there on my 12th fret and see how that comes up with my tuner. Again, that's a little bit sharp. It's showing me on the tuner. So because they're both a little bit sharp, I'm thinking perhaps my string's a little bit sharp. So let's just tune that string down a little bit. You can see now just detuned that string ever so slightly, not a lot. I've actually got arrows at both sides of my E on the display there, and that's showing me that the string's more in tune. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to play my 12th fret note. That looks to me like it's still slightly sharp, but not as sharp as before. I'll try my harmonic. That looks to me like it's in tune. If anything, slightly flat. So my 12th fret note is still looking slightly sharp because the arrow is telling me I need to tune down a tiny little bit. I play the harmonic. I've got a couple of arrows flickering, but it is telling me that I need to tune up a little bit. So in this instance, what I now know is the harmonic is slightly flatter or slightly lower pitch than the 12th fret note. So the rule of making these adjustments, if the fretted note is higher or sharper than the harmonic, then we need to lengthen the string. If the fretted note is flatter or lower than the harmonic, then we need to shorten the string. And that adjustment we're going to make using the screw that I showed you on the close-up video. So again, let's just double check. The fretted note, that's almost in tune, but it's just flickering on saying it's slightly sharp. My harmonic, bit of flickering, but it's flickering more on the flat side. So in this case, my fretted note appears to be sharper than my harmonic note, so I'm going to want to lengthen the string and then repeat the same procedure to check again. So I'm going to use my screwdriver, and I'm going to make a very, very tiny small adjustment. I don't think I'm going to have to move it very much because you can see it was all almost in tune. So what I'm going to do is just ever so slightly use a screwdriver to lengthen the string. So I'm going to make sure it's nicely seated in the head of the screw there, and in order to lengthen this I'm going to turn clockwise just a little bit. I'll probably do maybe a quarter of a turn there just to lengthen that string, and then I'm going to have a look again. So I'll just check that's just my open tuning, so that's more or less in tune. My 12th fret, that's showing me it's slightly sharp again still. My harmonic, that's showing like it's more or less in tune. So again, my fretted note is still sharper, so I want to make a further adjustment. I want to lengthen that string a little bit more. So I'm just going to do the same again, little turn. And then I'm going to check again. That's my open string, looks more or less in tune. If anything, it's slightly more or less in tune. 12th fret, it's still looking a bit sharp, although I've got some flickering on the other side now, so it's coming down a bit. My harmonic, that's more or less in tune. Check the 12th fret again, that's still showing as sharp. I'm going to lengthen a little bit more. It's a bit of a trial and error process. How far you want to turn these screws at a time. Don't want to go too far. Open string's looking a little bit flat there, so I'm just going to pull that up. Get that nice and in tune. Check my 12th fret. Still showing a little bit sharp on the tuner, but it is flickering a little bit in between, so it does look like it's coming down a little bit. My harmonic. That looks nicely in tune. think I might just have one more quick adjustment on this string. As I said, the fact that I'm using a guitar tuner isn't ideal because the bass, particularly on this E string, it can be difficult for a guitar tuner to track the very low notes because the bass is lower tuned than the guitar. So let's have another quick look. Open string, showing more or less. Bit of flickering across there, that's the 12th fret note. That's more or less again, it's nearly there. And the harmonic. So that's getting a lot closer now. When the little arrows are flickering on both sides as opposed to just staying on one side, I know for a fact on this tuner that's telling me that it's nearly there, it's more or less there. I'm going to leave that string for now. I'm going to just crack on and do the other strings off camera just as adjustments. I just wanted to show you the technique that I was using. Again, it may be not the clearest tuner that's available out there, but it's the one that I've got. It's the only one that I can show you, so I'm using that. And I know for a fact that when I'm getting those arrows flickering on both sides, on either side, that it is pretty close to being in tune. It's very difficult to get it to just stick on the note in the middle with no flickering. I've used this tuner a lot of times. I've used it live, you know, in different circumstances. So I know the equipment well. It does tend to do that kind of fluttering about thing. So don't worry too much about that. What I'm trying to do is get the best reading I can and get the best adjustment I can. In terms of how much have I turned that, I've probably turned that about half a turn to 3/4 of a turn in total. That doesn't matter. There's no fixed setting how to do it. You just got to do it by using the tuner. As I said previously on my other setup video, when we were looking at string height, string action, I did make a little record on a pad and pen. Just wrote down exactly what I changed, and if it all goes wrong and I'm not happy, I can always change it back to exactly how it was before. But don't forget to keep checking your tuning in the open position. Check your tuning at the 12th fret, and we're comparing that 12th fret tuning against the harmonic tuning. I might actually just adjust that a little bit further off camera, but it's nearly there. Wasn't too far out actually. I didn't have to move it too much on this one. But that's the technique for setting intonation. Don't forget, if the fretted note is sharper or higher than the harmonic, then we're going to lengthen the string. If the fretted note is flatter or not as high, then we're going to shorten the string. I'll put a note of that in the description to help you remember. So that's the basic procedure for doing the intonation. So I've set my intonation using the same method that I've just demonstrated across the other strings on this guitar. It wasn't actually that much out. It was pretty similar to the what I showed you on the E string. Didn't take a lot of adjustment at all, maybe half a turn, a little bit more than half a turn on a couple of them, just to get it slightly in. It wasn't too bad to start with. Just as a final word about the intonation, it's not something that it's just quite obvious to notice if you don't know what you're looking for and if you're not measuring it. If you're just playing by yourself on your own with your guitar, in particular if you're playing sort of down this end of the guitar, playing chords, which is quite often the case, you know, if you're just starting out as a beginner, or a few little, you know, riffs or single line runs down there, you probably won't notice your intonation at all, whether it's in or out. It gets more of a serious problem as you play higher up the neck, particularly around the 12th fret area. And the time when you really notice it is if you're playing along to a backing track or playing along to someone else who's got good intonation on their instrument. And again, if you're playing higher up here, something that can catch you out. So it's worth having your instrument set up properly. But again, if you're an absolute beginner and you're just playing down here, learning your chords, just getting the basics right, it's probably not something you need to worry too much about. But I wanted to cover it just for the sake of completeness for the task that I'm doing on this guitar. Again, because I'm not a bass player, I'm not particularly good on a bass. I don't tend to find myself playing this instrument up here very much. I do on my other guitars, but on this one, not so much. So it's just literally use it for doing a few backing tracks and such. But that's important because I've been recording it, and I plan to keep on using it for recording. so it's good that I've got it those slight adjustments made, so I know it's going to be perfectly in tune and intonated now as well. So we've done the string action height, we've done the intonation. Look out for the final video on this series. I'm going to look at my pickup height, so I'm going to balance the output of the pickups, because I noticed that one seems to be a bit louder than the other, and when I want to change between using different pickups, that can be a bit of an issue. So don't know how much I can affect that, but I'm going to look at that in a separate video. But a slight result for now, not a massive adjustment. I probably wouldn't have noticed it. I was just jamming around on the guitar, but every improvement's a good improvement. So again, we've had another win. So enjoy.